evening and a very, very warm welcome to you this evening for the Open Door Show from propertyCEO. Give me a hands up, give me a wave if you can see and hear me. Just give us a little wave. Thank you very much. Very good of you. You might notice he's not here again, is he? Look, it's me on my own. I think he's done a Boris Johnson. He's left the building. That's what he's done. So that's it. I'm in charge. I actually think now, he's hardly been here. That's Mr. Child, by the way, if you've forgotten his name. Ian Child's hardly been here on the Open Door Show this year, and I'm going to make a bid now. I'm going to make a bid to just run this show on my own. I think that's what I need to do. I just think, I can't keep carrying him. Last week he was in my studio. He was trying to pinch my sweets. I got a bag of sweets here. He was trying to pinch the damn things. Not having none of that. Not here at all. He's gone. And I think that's it. So I think you need to write in to support at propertyceo.co.uk and say the Open Door Show needs to not have Ian on it anymore. And obviously, if we get 10,000 people right in, he won't come on. Be perfect. Be perfect. He might be back next week. Who knows? Anyway, look, if you don't know, my name is Ritchie and this is the Open Door Show. It says it on the screen behind me from propertyCEO. Normally here with Ian, but he's not here this evening. But what are we going to do? Well, as always, it's 45 minutes of a bit of fun and taking a deep dive into the world of small scale property development. We'll always be talking to people on this show. It's not this week, though. I haven't even got a guest. Not even going to do the news, because Ian likes to do the old news shuffle, doesn't he? I think it's just sort of made that his thing. I don't know why he's made that his thing. And maybe you've made that his thing. But I'm not doing any news this week. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to talk. Literally going to talk at you. Going to talk at, I guess I am talking at you, because I'm guessing you're all there on the other side of that camera screen. Can't see you, but I can see you logged on. So I'm just going to talk at you this evening. But look, the important thing is fun. This is going to be fun. This is 45 minutes of fun. 45 minutes of my fun for the week anyway, that's for sure. Don't get out a lot these days, not at my age. So this is going to be about 45 minutes of fun. And at 7:45, you can go away and do whatever you want for the rest of the evening. But I do need you to join in. Okay, you promise? Because if you don't join in, well, literally, I'm just sat here in my studio in Hampshire talking to a camera, and I'm not getting anything back. So you need to join in. And I can see a few of you already joining in the chat box, which is good. Put anything in the chat box. I might even read it out if it's rude. Anything in there, you'd be more than welcome. What am I going to be doing tonight? Normally I say, Ian, what are we going to be doing tonight? But he's not here, can't respond. So I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing tonight. We're going to be talking about viewing tips, and I'm going to give you top 5. I'm going to give you top 5 viewing tips, because if you're a developer, if you're a landlord, this is much more associated with commercial buildings that might be want to convert. You need to know what to look for, because most of us are, we're terrible at it. We're not very good at all. So I'm going to give you 5 top tips. Okay, so grab a pen and paper, or just sit back and absorb it, take it in. It's a bit of fun. You're not going to learn property development in one night in 45 minutes, but you're going to get a few viewing tips. Let's see who's on this evening. Give a few shout outs. Cheryl's on. Hello, Cheryl. Good to see you. Groyana's on. Cindy's on. Sherab's on. Hello, Sherab. He was on Q&A this morning, Sherab. You're very keen, my friend. Torn's on. Patricia's on. Rashim's on. Will's on. Salim's on. Henry's on. Hello, Henry. Monica. Dan's on. Good evening, Dan. Catherine, you were on Q&A as well this morning. What's the matter with you mad folks? Haven't you got enough? Mustafa's on. Yvonne's on. Navinda's on. Patrick's on. Sadie's on. Hello, Sadie. Tom, Helen, Jin, Nadia. Karen's on. Lots of people on, which is really nice to see, because I wouldn't want to be sat here on my own. I know it's recorded and it could go up on YouTube, but imagine if I was just here on my own. Maybe there's just one of you there. Wouldn't be so good, would it? What do you say in the chat box? Jin said, good to be here. Thoroughly looking forward to tonight's show. Don't miss the other fella, says Tom. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Sorry about that, Tom. It's a bit rude. Dan says, good evening, Richie. Smiley. I think that's a smiley face. Can't quite see that. But Ian has his boat shoes to show. He had boat shoes on, didn't he, the other week? That was funny, wasn't it? We were training at an event, and he had boat shoes on, and he hasn't even got a boat. I don't think that's not legal, is it? You have to have a boat to have boat shoes. Terrible. Hello, good evening, says Yvonne. That's very formal. Cindy says hi. Hi, Cindy. And what else is on there? Sadie says, good to see you this evening. Looking forward to it. Well, we're looking forward to it as well, Sadie. So should be a bit of fun. Are you ready then? Do you want some viewing tips? And of course, any questions? Pop your questions in the chat box, because if you don't put any questions in the chat box, which is down here on my screen, not up here where my camera is, you don't put anything in there. I'll look down there when I've done the viewing tips, and I've gone through that, and we'll probably have about, I don't know, 40 minutes of the show left to do, and I'll just be looking at you. It's going to be a bit odd, isn't it? Particularly up on YouTube. We're not going to get, well, no one's going to look at it, are they? Okay, questions in the chat box, please, as we go. Well, not please, it's an instruction. You have to. Are you ready? For top viewing tips, I'm going to give you 5, okay? And this is about when you're going around looking at buildings. And the trouble is, as a new developer, okay, as a new developer that's not experienced, and maybe, you know, I know a lot of you out there, there's quite a few of our students on, a lot of you aren't students, and that's absolutely fine, okay? You're picking up tips and tricks on property, brilliant, I love it. But even when you are trained, you've always got to make the most, okay, to make the most of these viewings. And the trouble is, you're not experienced enough. So you're going to go around and you're not necessarily going to know what you're looking for. So you're going to walk in these buildings and you're going to make sure you understand what it is. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is getting light in. When you walk, write that down if you want, getting light in. So when you walk round the building for the first time, you're thinking of converting that building maybe into some residential flats. I want you to think about, okay, how can I get light into this building? Okay, think about that right from the start, because if you're going to cut and carve a building, you've got to work out how you're going to get windows into the bedrooms and the lounge, sitting areas, kitchen. You've got to make sure that you've got adequate natural light. New permitted development rules require it. They didn't used to. There were some buggers out there who were building flats with no windows at all. Can you believe that? And actually they were renting them. I suppose everything rents for a price, doesn't it? Now they were the ones that caused a bit of a problem, and ultimately the government then said we all had to put windows in, which most of us scrupulous developers were doing it. The unscrupulous ones weren't. So you have to do it. So you need to think about it right at the beginning, okay? So have a think when you're going in, you're looking around the building. So this studio, well, it's got one small window, but you know, if we were going to turn this studio here into a residential apartment, it'd need a few more windows, to say the least. And we'd have to think, where could we put some windows in? Well, I know I can't put any windows in that side because there's a barn. There's a barn on the other side. Sometimes you hear the pigeons and the owls in the damn thing, okay? I could sort of put windows behind me. If I go out through the studio, if I took that wall down, you'd be overlooking a green field. The cows are out there normally. Probably wouldn't be a problem. I'd probably be allowed to overlook the field. And I could, this side, this goes into an area underneath. This is part of our parking under the barn. This is an open barn area on this side that we could look into. So I couldn't do that side, maybe that side, possibly the front, okay? So I'd have a think about what's on the other side. And that's what I'd like you to do, is think what's on the other side of that wall. Is it someone else's garden? Is it actually physically a property? Where could I get windows in? Maybe think about roof lights. How could I get light in through the roof? How could that brighten something up? Now, the roof lights aren't, in my opinion, a substitute for vertical windows, because mentally it's just not good just looking up at the sky. The damn thing's normally grey. I know it's been blue for a while. Doesn't sound good, does it? But you know what I mean? It's been quite blue, no clouds, but actually normally it's quite grey. So it's not a good thing for mental health. So don't just think roof lights, Velux windows are perfect. But if they can add light, that's great. Maybe can you widen existing openings? Did a scheme once where there's just a real single simple door on this little elevation, and we put a really wide set of French doors in, virtually full width, on this little angled bit of wall. Massively opened it up, particularly because you could open it up and there was a very small patio area, but it sort of brought the patio into the lounge and the lounge out to the patio. Just really transformed the room. So can you widen existing openings? Maybe you can put some light tubes in. Now you can't see anything through a light tube, but it does give you that daylight transition rather than just being an artificial light. And remember, estate agents love light. Okay, the worst thing in the world of an estate agent is they're going to go and show someone around the building, and when they go to show them around the building, they've got to turn all the lights on. Okay, because you spot that as a purchaser. Oh, hang on a minute, it's dark in here. And somehow, I mean, I don't know, do you live in a dark house? Awful, isn't it? It's not so good when you live in a dark house. I like light houses. Number one, getting light in. Number two, think about access, okay? Because you've got to get access in and around the building. This is so important, okay? Because if you don't get access, how can you actually, how can you get around the thing? So plan out in your mind, okay, how people will access, if it's going to be carved into flats or houses, how will they access, particularly if it's flats, how will they access each flat? How will the corridors work? Sometimes you want to put corridors where you don't need windows. So if I couldn't have any windows here on my studio, let's assume this was a lot bigger, because you wouldn't get, well, you could get a small flat in here, about the size of a small flat, maybe, quite small. Anyway, assuming that wall there, we can't get any windows in, I might run a corridor down there, because corridors don't need windows, and I'll put the living accommodation on this side where I can get windows. So just have a think about how corridors can work and plan that out. Normally it's somewhere between 15 and 20%, okay, of the total floor area for access ways and corridors, okay? About 15 to 20% between access ways and corridors. So that just gives you a space. So you could take the overall area, say you had, I don't know, 100 square meters of building, okay? You're going to take 15 or 20 square meters off of that to actually end up with how much you've got left. So that could be, as I say, 80, 85 square meters that you could turn into flats. So that give you a couple of decent sized flats. Does that make sense? Make sense? Okay. And the important thing here about this access, even if you're not sure, so even if you're not very good at working how this is going to work and the layout, at least ask your architect to plan that out. So don't just forget it, be aware of it, be aware that you've got to solve those access problems, okay? Just be aware of that those have got to be, they've got to kind of bloom and fly in here, flying around now. Look at that, it's this time of year, isn't it? I just tried to give it a quick blast secretly with this, but I think you probably saw that. Anyway, that aside, you know it's real, you know this is live. When you've got a fly buzzing around, I've got to spray a bit of Raid at him. Anyway, so get your architect to think about it, okay? Get them to plan it out. If you're not sure, say, really concerned about this one, I've got to get the access ways in. Can you see how we can do that? Also consider egress, exit from the flats, okay? Now, you might think, well, that's the same as access in, but what I'm talking about is I'm thinking about disposing of the rubbish. Because one thing, sometimes you're not allowed, okay? And I say sometimes you're not allowed. You're not actually allowed, but sometimes you can get away with it. Let me rephrase that. Is you're not actually officially allowed to take your rubbish out of the front door onto the public highway, round a sideway and put it in a bin. In theory, you're supposed to be within your premises to put it in the bin. Many properties don't work like that, but just be careful. Local authority could actually pin you down on that one, okay? So just think about bin storage and where that's going to go. We had a scheme once we were trying to do in actually a local town from here. And yeah, the planner said, no, we absolutely insist you've got to actually do an internal walkway to the bin store. We can manage it, but it did compromise a bit of the layout. And finally, when I'm talking about egress, think about fire escape, because there's one way getting in, but when you've got to escape, if there's a fire, you can't always escape past another flat's window. So let's assume I had a flat here. I never thought of my studio as a flat, but we're doing it tonight, aren't we? Let's assume I've got a window here through my acoustic wall, okay, through my acoustic curtain and the panels on the wall. I've got a window there, and actually there's someone else that's got to get an escape route past it. Well, if this flat caught on fire and it goes through that window, you can't run past a narrow corridor with flames licking out. So a fire escape is equally important. Not expecting you to think about and understand all these things in detail, but at least if you're aware of them, these are questions you can ask, okay? So access is really important. Or number two, so we're going to go to number three. And I can see some comments and stuff and questions coming in the chat box, so thank you. Please keep putting them in. Look beneath the surface is my third tip. Look beneath the surface. Not service, surface. Can't even speak this evening in any one of those suites. Okay, what I'm talking about there is look behind claddings and false ceilings. So I'm going to use my studio again. You can see I've got acoustic panels on my wall behind me. They're on the ceiling. I've got some acoustic panels there, and I've got some acoustic curtains down on the left and the right. You might just better maybe make that out. I don't know from the image. So if I was going to walk into this space, this building, I thought, oh, I want to convert it. I want to see what's above those acoustic tiles. I don't know. I don't know what's above them. Well, I do know because it's my studio, but I wouldn't ordinarily know. So you've got to go beyond. What's behind those acoustic curtains, those acoustic panels? It could be that you've got like a polystyrene inlay ceiling. Lift the tiles with that. I mean, a little bit tricky here. I mean, I've got some acoustic curtains. You could pull them out of the way, but you can't really peel off without damaging my acoustic panels. You might get permission. So if you were looking at this, you could ask permission to, can I take a couple of those panels off and reposition them up afterwards? I think they're only stuck on, so I'm sure you could do that. But if you've got little polystyrene inlays, you can pop them up. Take a torch, always take a ladder, okay, pop the ceiling up and have a little look through, see what you can find. You might find things like old Artex ceilings. Sometimes you can find big spaces. You can find big areas that you never even considered. Sometimes you can find a hatch goes through to a space that you didn't even know was there. And maybe you can get a little mezzanine floor or something out of it. Or maybe you just put more height, more volume into the flat, because volume sells, okay? Volume can add value, but more importantly, it sells. If you've got a big high ceiling, that's more desirable. It may or may not get you more money, but it definitely sells, volume sells, okay? So look for that extra space. I say sometimes, I've been in a place once before where we actually found a whole plant room, disused plant room, which was above a ceiling, which we didn't really know was there. We sort of figured from the outside there was a void, but there's a whole concrete floor and everything. And cladding, as I say, look behind. Look in cupboards, open cupboards, okay? Particularly when you open a cupboard, generally the floor finishes, and quite often if you're doing office conversions, they've got raised floors. Some even shops have got various layers of old flooring that's gone on. So get rid of that, lift it up. But if you can't, get in a cupboard. Okay, well, don't get in the cupboard, obviously. Well, you could if it depends how big it is, but you could get locked in. You know, these agents are buggers, they do that. But go in the cupboard, have a little look in the cupboard, look down, because often you'll see services going through, particularly if it's multi-story building, and you'll better identify what the actual floor construction is, what the makeup is. That's really important. So get in cupboards, look around cupboards, look behind cladding, and if necessary, okay, ask permission. And importantly here, lots of photographs, okay? Lots of photographs. Take lots of photographs for your professional team to show them. Also for your memory, because I tell you what, you'll go round, you get back to your office and you'd have forgotten it. Particularly if you looked at another building or 2 or 3 others in between, and a couple of weeks later you go back to it, you think, oh, what was that? So take more than you ever imagined. Just click, 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 click. Okay, I mean, I know it doesn't make a click, but you know what I mean. Just take lots of photographs. Ready for number 4? I'm gonna have a drink. You have to wait a minute. Just be patient. I'm ready now for number 4. Hopefully are you ready? Good. Look for utilities, okay? Really important, look for all utilities. I don't mean a utility room, okay? What I mean is the services coming into the building and going out of the building. Where does all the waste drainage go out from? Are there any manholes, okay? Where does the services come in? Where does the gas, electric, has it got gas, okay? Where's the electric meters, and what sort of capacity are they? Do you know anything about that? Are they 3-phase, a single phase? Could they be extended? Could they be moved? Are they in the right place? Where does water come in? All of these things. See what you can find out. Now, again, you might not know what you're looking at, but take photographs, because it could be that the services you've got coming in are all in the wrong place, and they all have to be moved. You know, you might have the main services for a building coming in and you go, oh no, that's just where I want to take that wall down. And they're all held on the damn wall I want to take down. Well, you're going to have to move them, in which case you've got to factor in a cost. And we can't move the services, okay, from the meter side to the mains. We can move on our side of the meter, but if we want to actually move the meter and the mains connection, we've got to get the utility companies to do that. And there is a cost. Importantly, there's a time scale as well. So you need to get in early and get these things done. Okay, we're just talking about viewing, but that just aside, okay? So just try and identify where they are. If you know anything about them, obviously what capacity. If not, photographs. Take a lot of photographs, particularly, you know, electrics and gas, because you know, the specialists can look at those. The consultants can look at a photograph and go, oh yeah, no, that's not going to be sufficient. We're going to have to bring a whole new supply in, or this and that. They might just better tell from a photograph, in which case you don't have to take them to the site. Makes sense, doesn't it? And in terms of manholes, okay, often they're hidden. And they're often hidden underneath floors, because quite big building areas, sometimes they've got internal manholes covered over by the floor, sometimes by the screeds, you can't even see them. But just photograph a few manholes, a few covers. Okay, oh yeah, I've identified that. There is something there. I wonder if that's important. And if you don't know, you just ask. You'd ask, is that important to your consultant? Do we need to move that? Is there going to be a big cost to that? Okay, so get lots of information on the services. Does that make sense? Good. So a few more questions popping in. Thank you very much. Put them in, put more questions in, because the last one's coming up now, number 5. Okay, so the top 5 tips, number 5. This is really just to get you thinking, okay, when you're going around, because we're talking to a whole range of people that are on here this evening, and obviously some of you are going to listen to us on re-record off of YouTube or our website. So welcome if you're doing that. If you're not here on the Thursday night, well, you know, sorry about that. But anyway, you're here listening to it now. When you go and look at a building, just have a think what you're going to do, because a lot of people go and look at the building on the view, they're just going to demolish it. Okay, just let's get rid of it. Let's build some new. Now here at propertyCEO, we want to always take the path of least resistance. We want to encourage our students. In fact, we want to encourage you to take the path of least resistance, which is generally through permitted development rights. That's the route I want you to go. But in some instances, you might want to demolish. Okay, you might just think that it needs to demolish, it needs to be rebuilt. Some instances you might, although there are some implications of it, to use the permitted development right ZA, which is about demolishing a building and rebuilding. But what I want you to do is on the fifth tip is out of my top 5 tips is actually go in with an open mind. Okay. Sometimes, you know, it might be better to build less than more because it could be quicker. Because if you're going to knock something down, the lead times for planning could be, well, it just could be open-ended. You don't know when it's going to be. Cost of demolition, the time of the demolition, and time is money when we look at development. So always consider, is there a permitted development option? I looked at something on the Isle of Wight with a developer friend of mine, going back quite a few years. And he'd applied for, and it was bizarre really, because when you apply for permitted development rights, in theory, you should better convert the building. It's not, you can't go and build new. It's about converting the building. So he actually applied for this building, which was virtually just on the edge of falling down. It was all leaning over. It was timber frame. They got permission to convert it under PD rights, which was perfect, which was absolutely perfect. Now, he did convert it and straightened it all up, and basically the old structure went. You're not supposed to do that, but you know, you bend the rules a little bit every now and then. But what I'm saying is that would have been the most unlikely case to retain, and you'd have definitely said demolish it. And even I was thinking, well, I'll probably get rid of it. But actually, financially, it was a better deal. He didn't have to go for planning. He got instant planning under 56 days with his PD right. He saved time in demolishing. He had to fiddle around with the structure, but he got on with it. So always look for the permitted development option. And as I say, sometimes less is more. You've heard that phrase, haven't you? Less is more. So maybe less flats in a refurbishment versus more flats in a demolition and rebuild is actually going to be a better deal. It might not make you as much money, okay? But sometimes I'd say this, I'd encourage this. Sometimes a smaller, more certain profit is better than a riskier, higher profit. Would you agree with that? You know, if I know I can go down this road and I can earn £100,000 profit, pretty certain, within 12, 18 months, or you know, I might get 175, but I'm not sure, could take me 2.5 years. I'd have the smaller profit, get in, get out, get another job. Have a think about that. So hopefully you've written these down. If not, they've been logged in your mind there. Getting lighting, number 1, viewing tip. Just think about getting the lighting. Think about access, number 2, okay? Think about access and egress. Look beneath the surface, just the surface, probe, okay? Probe around, take off the panels, you know, the ceiling panels, go behind the walls, lift the floor tiles if there are any. If you need permission, try and ask permission. You've got to go beneath the surface. The surface, I keep saying surface, beneath the surface. I've said it now, surface. And look for utilities, and they are services, not surfaces. Okay, look for the utility companies, where they come in, where they go out. Always so important, often overlooked, not even considered. And sometimes, you know, you speak to your cost consultant and then they might say, oh, any going to be any change on utilities? Oh, I don't know, I didn't even see. Have they got gas? I didn't even see. Didn't even see where it come in. You need to find these things, okay? And make sure, number 5, you're going to consider converting it rather than just demolishing it. Is that good? Happy with that? Okay. Give us a wave if you enjoyed that. Give us a little hands up if you thought that was mildly interesting and maybe a tad useful. Okay, at least 2 of you, 3 of you, 5 of you, 6 of you. Okay, quite a lot of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, shall I answer some of your questions? Does anyone want any questions answered? Maybe? Yeah? A couple of hands gone up. Okay, switching to laptop, someone said. Okay, no problems at all. You can switch to your laptop if you want to. Okay, let's have a look here. Question here. Navinda says, Ritchie, hi. Hi, Navinda. Do you need plan permission to put windows in? Now, let's say yes. Okay, there are some instances with some of the PD rights you don't need. You can do some of the works associated with it, but generally, Navinda, I'm going to say yes, you do. Okay, so if you're going to take a permitted development right to convert, let's say an industrial, could be officey type building like the studio. You say you're going to buy an old music studio, and it was an office type building, and you want to put some windows in it because there's no windows in this thing, as I say. Well, the permitted development rights, Navinda, gives you the permission to convert the use class, so it will take it away from Class E and turn it into residential Class C3. So that's the permitted development right. And if you want to put windows in any of these walls, you'd have, and if you want to change the roof and stuff like that, that would be a planning permission. So yes, you need planning permission to put windows in. If you want to just change the color of a render of a building, I mean, this isn't rendered, but it's clad. But if let's say you want to change the cladding, okay, on our barn, our offices are an old barn. If you wanted to change that cladding and put, it's a black cladding, let's say you wanted to put a brown cladding on there or a white cladding, you'd have to get planning permission to do that as well, okay, and even to change the windows, you now need planning permission. That's not normally the controversial bit. The controversial bit is the change of use. So once you've got the change of use, it's not normally a problem to get a planning application in there, and it normally comes through within 8 weeks to change the windows over. Hopefully that's answered your question. Okay, next question. Nadia says, do you think you should always try and take the professionals with you to a viewing? No, but wouldn't it be nice if you could, Nadia? Wouldn't it be nice if you could? But you can't, okay? You can't. Navinda says, thank you, no problem at all. Nadia, you can't always take them. It costs you too much money. I mean, you can get a few favors, a few times they go along with you, but you're going to run out of those favors quite quickly, and then you're going to have to start paying them, and you can't do that for every building. And I'd suggest, go back to the photographs, Nadia, I would just take lots of photos, okay? Take lots of photos and go round, with that, take lots of those, and probably some video, take some video as well as the photos, go around. That should normally suffice as a first pass, because what you want to be doing then, you want to get some input from an architect, you want to get some structural engineering input, maybe mechanical, electrical input when we're talking about services, maybe a cost consultant's input, okay? And so, of course, you can share all those photographs with them and say, what do you think of that? Now, let's say for my discipline, I'm a chartered structural engineer, that's my profession. Not that I've done that for a long time, but that's what I used to do. And riding the bike, once you got it, you never lose it. And so what one can look at, I can look at now in an existing building, have a look at it and understand relatively quickly whether it's convertible, whether I can actually change that building and convert it into something else, or whether actually it's problematic. I can normally tell you whether it's a frame building or what we call a low bearing mason. I could normally tell from some photographs whether it's a steel or concrete frame. I might better tell whether it's pre-stressed or just pre-cast or in situ. Lots of, so from a photograph, you can see a lot. So what I would do is go around, take lots of photographs, and then if it looks interesting, because don't forget, this is a big purchase, you're more than likely going to do a second view and probably a third, okay, at least. On the second view, and if it looks of interest, then get them to come back and have a look. Of course, the great thing is then that the building isn't completely fresh to them. They've been round, they've already actually seen the building. They've seen the building in some photographs, they understand what it looks like. They then are almost primed to go and look for what they want to look for. Because if you showed me a set of photographs, I'd probably go, okay, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'd like to just explore a little bit further this or that, just to understand, is it concrete framed or isn't it? I'm not entirely sure. This one's a little bit tricky. Does that make sense, Nadia? Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does. Sonia says, an old stable without a roof needs planning, ? Tricky one, interesting one. So there we have a permitted development right, Sonia, called Class Q, which is about conversion of barns. And I would say you just check this one with a planning consultant, because this one is a real problematic one. If this is a barn in the country, and it may or may not be as an old stable, if that's a barn and it doesn't have a roof, but it probably used to have a roof, okay, providing you don't go outside the parameters of what the roof used to be. So if the roof was that thick, you can't suddenly put a roof on that thick, which you might need to for insulation, and hence raise the height of the building because you're raising the roof up. So providing you work within what would have been the curtilage of the building, the volume of the building we had there, and then the outer structural limits of that, finishes limits, you're probably going to be okay, and that you can probably do that under permitted development rights. If you're going to push those boundaries out a little bit and go beyond that, okay, then you might well struggle. Okay, you might well struggle. Stable in a suburb. You need to understand what the use class of that building is. Okay, really important. Run that one past the planning consultant, Sonia. Make sure they understand and they can guide you to exactly whether that will fall under one of the use classes that we want to better convert. So stable in a suburb, it depends. It might not, it might look like a stable, might smell like a stable, but it might not be a stable. Okay, it could be something else. It could be storage. It could be classified as B8 storage, in which case you've got no permitted development rights. That might have been its last use. So see what you can. I think what I would do, Sonia, is pass that to a planning consultant, see if they can give you a bit of guidance on that one. Okay, next question. I am someone, says Gabriella, I am someone that finds it really difficult to visualize how a building can be converted. I am more than numbers person. That's good then, you need numbers. How can I improve how I do viewings to get the information that I need? Which is still what I told you, those 5 tips. I think Gabriella, hopefully you've listened to the 5 tips. I'm not sure when you joined. If you missed them, listen to it on re-record. Gabriella, I just gave you 5 tips for viewing. So if you're not so good at numbers, they're going to be quite useful. The key thing is, and it goes back to the question we just asked about professionals. Who was asking that one? That was Nadia was asking that one. But Gabriella, similar to Nadia's question, I hope you just heard that one. Ideally, wouldn't it be great for you to take, an architect who can help visualize that space? The secret, though, Gabriella, is you need to get better. If you're not very good at visualizing something, you need to be better at it. Yes, you can get an architect do some of it, but actually, as a developer, you need to do what's called block planning. You need to be able to initial space plan the unit out. How many flats could I roughly get in it? That's a skill you should have as a developer. Okay, you shouldn't just leave that to your architect. Now, Gabriella, you might not be as good as this as Nadia or Sonia or Navinda. Okay, but you need to be better than what you are, if that makes sense. And one of the things that we train our students is how to block plan, how to lay out buildings. And I know certainly once students go through those modules, they understand those modules, they're all better than what they were. Some duck to water, they're absolutely great at it. Others always struggle because maybe like you, Gabriella, they're the numbers person, and that's totally fine. But if you get a bit better at it, then at least you know how to sweat the asset. Because again, you can't keep ringing an architect every 5 minutes. Okay, so you've got to learn some of this stuff yourself. What you then want to do though, with lots of photographs, so maybe more photographs if your visualization is you struggle with. So Gabriella, for you, maybe more photographs, more videos, just get loads of them. And then maybe you're going to have to lean on your architect a little bit more. But I think you need to learn that skill. You do need to learn that skill. But then you get to a stage where you go, okay, I think I'm going to lean on my architect to give me a bit of a layout. Hopefully that helps. Nadia says thumbs up. Well, she doesn't say thumbs up, but she's a little thumbs up, so no problem at all. Barry says, good evening, Barry. So we're getting a few questions here. Good evening, Barry. When you say plan out the layout and access for each flat on a conversion, I did, didn't I? One of my tips. Is this not the architect's job? I was just talking about that. And I'm assuming you wouldn't have them on board for each project you look around. Obviously, Barry, you popped that one in before I answered the other one. So, Barry, yes, it's the architect's job, but no, it's not. What I mean by that, Barry, to start with, it's your job. Okay. And I go back, what I was just talking about with Gabriella, okay, is that the important thing is not all architects are entrepreneurial. Now, I'm assuming you're all entrepreneurs. And the reason I'm assuming you're entrepreneurs is because you're not watching the TV tonight. You're sat listening to this. You want to do something different. You want to get into property development, or you're in property development. You're already on that journey. Or you're watching telly at the same time. So shame on you if you are. But don't tell me that, because I'm just going to assume you're here totally focusing on this. So what I would say is, as an entrepreneur, Barry, you can learn to sweat the asset. You can learn to block plan. And you can learn, because you want to, particularly if you're good at the numbers, like Gabriella said she was, you can try and squeeze that extra unit in. Now, you might not quite better work it out. You haven't quite worked the corridors and the egress and the windows out because you're not so great at visualization. But if you have a go, you go, look, I'm not quite sure, but it looks like I could get 5 units in there or 6, whatever. Then you can go to your architect. And then you can push your architect, say, look, I've got a little bit of a look like this, and I think this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. And they can actually then drill that down and see if they can squeeze those units in. So yes, they can follow up. It's not the architect's job to do it in the first place, certainly in my opinion. I want you as a developer to learn how to do that, because you're the one that's the entrepreneur. You're the one that's going to sweat the asset. Architects aren't always entrepreneurial enough to do it. Their work, once you've got a bit of a layout, they're brilliant at taking what you've got and then really trying to make it work. And if they can't get 6 units in, it's only 5, well, at least you'll have that understanding, but you had a go, okay? You had a go and pushed it. Hopefully that helps. Next question. What would I be looking for above false ceilings, and how would I recognize a problem, says Robert. Do you know, it doesn't, in a way, Robert, it doesn't really matter what you're looking at if you don't know. Just take photographs. Again, it's that photographs thing. You're only going to better gain so much knowledge. So poke your head above that ceiling. What we're just looking for is what's there. That's all we're looking for. Now, in terms of how would I recognize a problem? So if there's Artex, okay, and this is quite common, old Artex has quite often got asbestos on it. So if you see Artex, think could have asbestos on it, which has got, you know, a little bit of cash to remove that. I know you can get some tax claims and money back, but it's always a bit of a problem. You'd rather not have it. So first of all, if you see Artex, then you just think maybe there's asbestos. You might have some pipes that are lag and something like that. Any lagging, old sort of fibrous lagging, could be asbestos. So that's one thing that we're looking for. And you might not recognize it, but take some photographs. It could be just some old pipe work. And you think, what's that pipe work there for? What does that do? Doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's cut. Maybe you can't see, it just goes through the space. You can't see where it comes from. Just photograph it, okay? It's a question. If it's a huge void, you might think, well, that's a big void. Could I use that? Don't know. It's another question. Just take a photograph of it. If you pop a ceiling panel and then, Robert, what you see is a big steel beam or a big bit of structure or a big bit of timber. What's that? Could I move that? Is that in the way? What's it there for? It's just another question. So what you're actually looking for is those questions, and you're taking a picture. And then again, Robert, it comes back to these pictures, which, you know, speak 1,000 words. Pass them through to your consultants. They go, oh yeah, I can see what that is. It's an old sprinkler system, or yeah, that's part of the original structure, or that's a strengthened steel beam because it's an old timber frame, or what it might be. They might not know, but in which case you've highlighted the problem, and then your professionals might go, okay, we need to have a look at that. Look, Robert, I think before you put a bid in, let us come down and have a look at that, because that looks a bit odd. You know, that looks like there's a tie beam tying this building together. Maybe it's spread out in the past. Does that help, Robert? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Kathy says, good evening, Kathy. Do you recommend taking measurements on a viewing? Yeah, definite. Okay, definitely take measurements. What you should do before you go for a viewing, and this wasn't in my top 5, maybe number 6, what you should do before you go for a viewing is make sure that you've got enough dimensions to block plan it out, to lay it out. And so if you haven't got enough dimensions, then always go and get the dimensions that you haven't got. So you think, oh, I haven't got a width of the building. You know, I don't know how big that office space is at the end, or I don't know how big the shop floor is on the ground. Then if you know what you've not got, you know what's missing, you can go in and grab those. Okay, so that's important. But what I would always say is I'd always take some dimensions. Generally, what I would do is take a piece of paper, maybe if I print off the floor plan, if the agent's got one, mark up all the dimensions I want to get, and buy yourself one of those little electronic tape measures. You know, do you know the ones, Kathy, the little ones that you click, you know, electronic ones, give you the measurements, pop it on a wall. So much easier when you're on your own. You can't start getting a tape measure out, it takes too long. And I would always do a series of check dimensions. As I'm walking around, popping up ceiling tiles, looking behind the walls and paneling and, you know, lifting up floor ducts, looking in cupboards, I'll be popping a few dimensions around the building, some floor to ceiling height, some width, some lengths of the building. Just pop those, but have a drawing ready. Because if you haven't got a drawing marked up with, oh, I want dimension A, dimension B, dimension C, D, E, etc., you won't get them. And you'll write down a series of dimensions, and when you get back, you go, where was that from? Where was that to and from? And what it would do, Kathy, if you've got those dimensions, you've got those measurements, it will help you pull the thing together, okay, when you get back to your office. When you sat down, you know, you can tell me that seems to be about right. Or there's something odd here. Something doesn't seem to up. It looks like I've got less area than what the agent says, or I've got more area than what the agent says. At least it generates more questions. It's a bit like Robert's question about going up into the ceiling. What am I looking for? You're just looking for questions. Does that make sense, Kathy? You're just looking for questions. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. Let's see what I can pick out another one. There's quite a few here. Let me pick out a few. Cindy's asked the question. Hello, Cindy. One tip I took, I think it's a tip that Cindy's given. I'm not sure it's a question. Let's have a look. I took video as well as photos. Absolutely, definitely take videos as well as photos. I'll tell you why in a minute. After a particular viewing and trying to work out what would cause the walls to be damp, the photos didn't show the big structural crack under the windowsill that I actually missed. Blimey, Cindy. Yeah, the thing about photos, and I've learned to my cost, maybe Cindy the same as you, I've learned to my cost over many, many years, you take photographs and, you know, back in the, I mean, you know, a lot of you youngins, you've always had electronic cameras, but you know, back in the day when we'd have to, you know, video wasn't really an option, and we had a 36 reel film, we had 36 photos to take, and the damn the damn thing was, you've got one photo there and another one there. There's always the gap in the middle that you didn't take, and you think, oh, what was going on there? Or in Cindy's case, there was a great big crack down the wall that you missed. It always was the way. The great thing these days about a smartphone is you can go around and you just take photos, loads of photos, and sure as eggs are eggs, you'll have a gap on the photos. But with the video, you're just going to cover it all. A little tip on video: do it really slowly. If you go around like that, you're never going to see anything, and you're just going to keep stopping it. Just do it really, really super slowly, almost as if you're in slow-mo, because what you're trying to look at, or your consultants are trying to look at, is detail. Okay, and I've had a few students send me videos, and it's like my eyes are doing this, because the video is just, it's like, they're walking around and they go, right, here's the video, it's all up around, and you think, Jesus, come on, slow down, because you can't slow it down that easy always. Cindy, hopefully that helps, and a nice little statement there to share. Thank you very much. Right, we got time. We got time to squeeze another one in. Penny, good evening, Penny. She says, I've done a couple of commercial viewings before, and I have found that the commercial agent is hurrying me through, and I didn't get time to stop and really consider things. Any suggestions? Yeah, tell them to bugger off. Tell them to wait. Look, at the end of the day, what I'd say, Penny, is you have to go in with confidence. And if someone says, oh, come on, hurry up, so no, I haven't finished. You wouldn't, would you, I always relate stuff back to buying cars, because it's such a good analogy. And when we talk about developers, would you, if you're going to go and buy a car and someone says, well, get on with it, can you have a look around quick? Come on, because I've got another customer. You're out there, aren't you? Even if you wanted a Vauxhall or a BMW, you'd be down the next BMW garage. You go, I'm not working that franchise. And if you're on a test drive and the road says, well, literally, I'll give you 5 minutes, you're going, a minute, it's £30,000. I'm not taking 5 minutes around the road. I want a good hour. Oh, I haven't got an hour, Well, don't touch the radio. You haven't got time to turn that in. Can I just check my phone connects? I haven't really got time. You wouldn't bother, would you? So don't go around a building which is many more times, tens times, hundreds, 20 times more than what a car's going to purchase, and get hurried. Okay, so do not get hurried. So some suggestions: manage expectations, Penny, before you get there. So say to the agent, really serious about this one. This is just ticking my boxes. Okay, I'm really serious. I want to have a really good look around when I go around there tomorrow for the viewing. It could be by email or verbally. I want to take some dimensions, get some photographs. I'm going to need a good 45 minutes in there. Okay, is that okay with you? Because if not, I'd rather rearrange. And if they say, oh well, actually I've only got 20 minutes, I've got to get another appointment. So okay, can we arrange for the next day? I'd rather do Monday than Friday. I'd rather do that and have the 45 minutes there. Most agents will take you seriously on that basis. And if they don't, I probably wouldn't bother with them, okay? Because they could have actually sold it to someone else. They're not fussed. But if you're serious and you tell them why, it's not, oh, because I'm really slow and I'm brand new at this. No. I want to get some dimensions. I've got a lot I want to have a look at. I really want to consider a few things. Manage their expectations. And when you get there, manage it as well. Say, look, great to see you. Did you get my email? Obviously, I'm going to have perhaps what we could do is you could just do a quick walk around with me. Just show me what's what. And then if it's okay with you, I'm going to walk around on my own. I've got my clipboard. I've got a load of notes that I want to take. I want a load of things to look at, a load of photographs. I'm going to be about 3/4 an hour. Is that okay with you? Because you don't want them on your back. Because what they do, agents will be talking to you because they can't not talk. Okay, agents can't not talk. It's part of their DNA. That's their makeup. They have to talk. And so they'll ask you questions. And often what they want to do is they want to find out, so what are you doing with it then? So what's happening, Penny? What's your thoughts? What you think? And one, you don't want to tell them, and you could be tempted to tell them because they're talking to you. And secondly, it distracts you. Oh, well, it's this, and this. And you forgot to take those dimensions or that photograph, or you didn't look for manholes, or you didn't look in the utility cupboards to see if there's any services. So actually, just manage their expectations and make sure you want to have a little walk around. And don't get hurried. And if they say, look, I absolutely got to go, you say, okay, well, I need a second viewing then. I need to arrange a second viewing. And if they don't want that, they're not serious, they probably already sold it. So you're wasting your time anyway. Penny, hopefully that helps. And I think we have more or less run out of time. I'd like to answer Pavinda, Cheryl, Vijay, Nadia's put another question, Helen's put a question in, Jack's put a question in, Josh, there's lots of questions. I do apologize. We just don't have time. I mean, we got through more than what we could have done if Ian was here. He'd have done the news, he'd have shuffled his papers, it just takes so much time. Hopefully you've enjoyed tonight's show. Hopefully it's been a bit of fun. Next week is our last show, I think, before August. We have a break in August, so we've got one more show, and then we have a bit of time off in August. So make the most of it. Come back and see us next week. Please, please, please put any comments or whatever thoughts. If you've liked tonight's show, let us know in the chat box. It always helps. It just makes it worth doing. We do this show for you. Anything else you want on the show, you want us to talk about, please pop that in the chat box as well. Next week's show is 28th of July, Thursday, the 28th of July at 7 o'clock. And we have our good friend Rory O'Mara, great friend of ours here at Property CEO, good friend of mine for many, many years, closed bridging finance. So he's a financier. So we're going to end up this season of Open Door talking all about finance next Thursday. So let's have a look what's going on. Thank you, Cindy says. Thank you, no problem at all. Dan says, great show as always, exclamation mark. Cheryl says, good as ever, cheerio. Vimsha says, loved it, terrific, absolutely fun. Monica says, cheers, Richie. Look forward to seeing Rory again next week. Well, absolutely, so do I. Top tips, as always, many thanks, says Yvonne. Sonia, great stuff, thanks. Will says, thanks. Thanks, Ian. You can't be like, thanks, Ian. Thanks, Richie. That's what you want to say. Gabriella says, terrific show as always. Penny says, thank you. Great advice. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And finally, great info, says Patrick. And Adenki says, thank you. Great show. Well, look, it's been a great show. I've enjoyed it. Have a good weekend. Have fun. See you next week. Cheers now. Bye-bye.